Is it true that you have to love yourself first? What do you mean? First meaning what? Before you can love others, or before others can love you? Well, those would be equally toxic statements. So Maslow's hierarchy of needs, of psychological needs, puts belongingness before esteem, and the love of others and for others before the love of self. When I ask students if they can criticize this hierarchy, this is where they tend to zoom in and focus because they've all heard this toxic wisdom about self love. But I think we can break this notion fairly easily by noting the existence of babies and dogs. Neither of these organisms has a particular sense of self. Both participate ably in relationship without self concept and without love, as an adult human might define it. There's a longer video about love, and I probably might remember to link it in the zone there. Um, in this sense, we aren't talking about love at all. We're talking about attachment. Attachment is an information channel. We develop simpatico and then empathy. Through these devices, we learn about the feelings of others. A baby learns to self soothe as the parent soothes the baby. Our left frontal lobes link up. This is Daniel Siegel stuff. Do I have it here? I might not look very hard. God, I think I loaned it out. Doesn't matter. The left prefrontal cortices kind of they link up not through any mystical means, not through telepathy or something like that, but through simpatico and empathy. So the baby learns to self-soothe as the parent soothes the baby. The emotion that's too big for you is not too big for me. It's not too big for us, right? And there's that mutual empathy. You have a feeling, I feel that feeling, I can contain it. And then you can benefit from my containment of that feeling because you feel the containment, right? And that goes back and forth until the person, the child, is soothed. This is really important. Children need a stable caregiver in their life. Someone predictable and empathetic. The child begins to form a mental model of the adult. And then they can run input-output problems on that model, probably by age 5. If I ask mommy for a cookie, she'll say no. But if I ask daddy, he'll say yes. And that mental model will follow the child around well into adulthood. It's why Freud said we must kill our parents. Not literally, like the Menendez brothers, but figuratively. We have to replace a dysfunctional mental model with a functional one. And that functional mental model can do that soothing work with the individual. I'm in distress. I have emotions too big for me, but they're not too big for mommy who lives in my brain as a mental model, right? And over time, querying that imaginary parent, that model of the parent, just transfers those skills into the frontal lobe, and then the emotion is not too big for me. It's not too big for me anymore. The mental model is reflexive. That is, it's a model of the parent, and the child sees their self through the parent's eyes. If the parent appropriately loves the child can see their self as lovable. Later, by 11 or so, children form their own sense of identity. The mental models of others are essential to the concept of selfhood. If others can be modeled, I can be modeled. And I have a meta model as a basis, right? Like if you're setting out to learn French, it would be really helpful if you already knew another language other than English, because now you have a model, right? You have the language, which is a model, you have the second language, which is a model, and you have meta models of language itself. That's going to be very helpful when it comes time to build your model of French. so you can speak French. Good. So if I have that meta model as a basis, then I can start to model myself in a way that includes worth, because I have models of people who value me. So now we need to revisit the concept of love. It really is just a concept, not a thing in the world. It's a phenomenon that we seem to co-experience, but we could think of it also as however the parent treats the child. That is, love isn't a real thing in the world with objective properties, but inferred from early relationships. If the parent is empathetic and kind, the child will grow into an adult whose love concept involves empathy and kindness. If the parent is rejecting and abusive, however, well, the child will grow into an adult who, when you tell them I love you for the first time, they disappear like a bad smell. So there are adults who fail on the dating market. Sometimes this is because they can't find their own sense of self-worth, and this turns away, potential applicants. But telling that person to love their self first is victim blaming, it's gaslighting. It's fundamentally just not very helpful. Someone has to do the work of helping them break down their existing mental models, replacing them with appropriate models of self and others. In therapy, this work is called recapitulation. The therapist stands in for the parent. We create an environment of unconditional positive regard and accurate empathy. In that environment, the client can make a model of the therapist that can slowly displace the dysfunctional models of earlier relationships. A key turning point in many therapies is when the client thinks of us outside the session. They report, I was stuck at a red light and I was starting to get angry. And then I thought of what you would say. A red light is a chance to rest for a minute and take a deep breath. And then I felt better. Right? I wasn't in the car with that client. That client had me inside their head, and now they have a mental model that they can query about problems and that they can develop, right, into a meta model, a reflexive meta model, all of that stuff. So the therapist is reflective and reflexive already. The relationship is explicitly about how the client appears through my experience of the client. Then they have this leg up on the work of repairing or rebuilding their self-concept. If love is positive regard, empathy, and safety, then the client can begin to see their self as lovable, worth understanding, and worth protecting. Gaining the capacity to love oneself productively, appropriately, is not self-work. It might not take a therapist, but it takes relationship. Maslow wasn't right about everything. In retrospect, he might not have been right about very much at all, but he was right about that. Demanding we all get well on our own, with no help, without any grace, is just part of the American myth of self-reliance. This has been The Black Pill. Like, share, subscribe, all that happy crappy. I don't know why you watch this stuff. Okay, bye.